Money. Our lives revolve around him. We all want it. We know we all want it. Most of it doesn't even exist beyond the high-capacity servers of some bank. And yet, the search continues for this elusive thing. Despite its presence in everyday life, despite the fact that we spend most of our waking hours working for money, it is still somehow taboo to talk about it. We like to pretend that money is not important to us. And of course, money is not the end goal. In fact, one of the most common regrets of people on their deathbed tends to be that they worked too hard, chasing the money, of course. For all its value, however, money still can't buy you a meaningful relationship or experience. But, while money can't buy any of those things, it can make them more accessible. Isn't it easier to achieve happiness once you know that the bills are all paid? Isn't it easier to achieve happiness when you can give a loved one something you know they deserve? At the very least, more money often equals more choices as to how you want to spend your time, whether it's with loved ones or pursuing a passion you had as a child. And even if you don't agree with everything I just said, to change the world, you'll still need the backing of financial capital. Now, with that said, and hopefully having navigated through the discomfort of introducing a topic like this, let's get straight to the point. How much money should you be making? The search. How much is enough? And beware, there is a very good reason to ask such a question. This is not just out of curiosity. Studies show that when you've actually put a metric to a goal, and maybe even written it down, you're more likely to achieve it. People who vividly visualize a goal are 40% more likely to achieve it successfully. So how much? What does literature say? Well, the relationship between money and happiness is complicated. First, emotions are generally difficult to track, and second, this question hasn't been researched much. However, anyone who talks about this topic has to mention a 2010 literature paper written by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton. Her article discusses the relationship between income and happiness. But it goes a little further. The authors decided that simply examining one metric as a measure of subjective well-being would not capture the full picture and confuse the findings. So they looked at two things: emotional well-being, which is defined as daily satisfaction, and life evaluation, defined as the thoughts that come to mind when one thinks about life as a whole. You could also think of emotional well-being as short-term happiness, and evaluating life as long-term happiness. Now, what did the research find? It turns out that life appraisal steadily increases with income. The more people earn, the more positively they tend to think about life in general. Emotional well-being, on the other hand, seems to plateau after an annual income of around $75,000, which means that up to that figure, for most people, every increase in income will feel great. But after that, your daily happiness won't increase as much. So, there it is, right? That's the magic number. Well, not quite. For one, this is a 2010 study. Due to inflation, today, that amount is closer to $93,000 USD. And I should also mention that this study was conducted with U.S. residents as participants. What is considered a good life will vary drastically in other parts of the world. Let's be clear. There's more. Recently, in the first weeks of 2021, researcher Matt Killingsworth published the latest findings on the same question. How much money should you be making to be happy? Their findings. Experienced well-being continues to rise even beyond the coveted $75,000 mark. And not only that, it continues to increase with the same intensity as before, which means that the return on investment is no worse the more money you make. The experiment. Why does this research not match the previous findings? Well, for a paper by Kahneman and Deaton, the data that was collected for emotional well-being was answers to questions about the previous day. That has the potential to not capture what a person was really feeling in that moment of happiness or sadness, because our minds tend to play tricks on us. Killingsworth's research, meanwhile, is collected through an app that alerts users at various times of the day. It is more convenient than traditional forms of survey, and as such, it had a significantly larger pool of responses on which to base its findings. This also allowed him to more faithfully capture what the participants were feeling. So, if we accept Killingsworth's findings, both people's daily happiness and their overall outlook on life tend to improve with higher incomes. So does that mean we should all aim for an astronomically high salary in pursuit of happiness and hope to get there one day? Is this a realistic goal? There is a thought experiment to try to answer that question for us as individuals. Author Brad Stollery came up with the idea for the experiment. It goes like this. How much money would you have to receive, right here, right now, to never receive a dollar of income from anyone else again? Now, you might think that's a simple experiment. You're just aiming for a really, really high number. Somewhere in the hundreds of millions or billions for most people, I guess. The catch is that this experiment will be conducted in groups of 5 people, and whoever has the lowest figure in mind will actually take the money. The rest of the players get nothing. The game theory at play here is actually pretty cool. What's interesting about this experiment is that it pits 2 of your impulses against each other, and in doing so forces you to be reasonable. Because of course you want to aim for a high figure, but you also want to earn and have the money, so you can't aim for a ridiculously high figure. Of course, this experiment talks about money paid as a lump sum, while most of the research focuses on wages. Perceptions of well-being might be different for the two, but it's hard to see why the thought experiment wouldn't work with wages as well. Continuing with the theme, it is essential to ask how much money one would need to never receive a dollar of income again. This can help us vividly visualize a goal we can work towards. It's true, we all want to achieve happiness, but earning more income is easier said than done. When should we really stop trying? And what if circumstances don't allow for a raise or promotion? That's where our ability to adapt comes in, which, while wonderful, also means that when we are presented with an improvement in quality of life, we adapt quickly and begin to take it for granted. This explains why most people live 9 to 5 chasing that next raise, because staying where you are, regardless of whether you make 5 or 7 figures a year, brings with it a heavy sense of obsolescence. Comparison. Then, obviously, there's an element of comparison. We have known for a long time that comparison is the thief of joy. You can have a 7-figure salary, but you won't be anywhere near happy if you compare yourself to Jeff Bezos, who has more money than brain cells, literally. Studies also show that for the same salary, people who live in a wealthy neighborhood feel worse than people in a poor neighborhood. While both participants probably enjoy their salaries, they also compare them to that of the Joneses. If the Joneses earn less than you, you are happy. If they earn more, you're not. Research also says that easily accessible money improves well-being more than money that is kept in someone's pension fund. The proximity of a number you can see in your pocket can be a sigh of relief. Having just $500 of money available in a bank account can improve life satisfaction by up to 15%. Then, of course, there's also the question of what you do with the money that eventually leads to happiness. If you simply make more money from making money, you could still get some joy, assuming you succeed. It's like a game. But the excitement will pale in comparison to that of a person who spends their hard-earned money in a better way. Buying time is often considered one of the best ways to spend your money, as it allows you to focus on the more joyful aspects while delegating the more laborious aspects to someone else who will happily do them. The gig economy has made this more accessible than ever, allowing people to spend more time on the things that really matter, even if it means having a little less in the bank account. This could mean paying someone to do the dishes so you can read a book to your child in bed, or it could mean buying a more expensive ticket so you can spend time with the family. Material possessions also draw a lot of attention when it comes to the relationship between wealth and happiness. The research is clear on this too. Spend on experiences, not things. The reason is that the experiences are exclusive. No one can feel what you felt on that trip with your best friend. No one can buy that exclusivity. Despite the ephemeral nature of an experience, it can last a lifetime. And, unlike the value of objects, which tends to depreciate over time, experiences only seem more enjoyable in hindsight. Our minds tend to overlook the small bumps in an experience, the delayed flight, or the bad Wi-Fi, and remember only the good parts. So, instead of aiming for a specific salary figure, it might make more sense to target experiences and pursue the ability to afford those experiences. Of course, this is not to say that material possessions cannot be an experience. A song could be an experience. A cup of coffee could be an experience. An expensive car could be an experience. That is really up to the individual to decide. But people usually overestimate how happy they'll be once they have that new thing. However, once we have it, the feeling of contentment slowly erodes, and we are back where we started. On one level, it can be a bit unsettling to accept that money does in fact buy happiness, or at least buys ways to achieve happiness. But in reality, haven't we known this all along? More importantly, this realization must be qualified with the ideas of what is really important: people, experiences, and time. Not only can it inform our career choices, and how much we want to invest in pursuing this object, but it also tells us why generosity matters, why a more equitable future is one we must strive for. Because remember, the only reason any of us want money is to inevitably get rid of it in the end.